If we look here on the left-hand side, we have our traditional Veeam backup and replication console. And on the right-hand side, I've got a newly deployed Big Sur virtual machine. So one of the first things that we need to do when we log in here is we need to come to Inventory and click on Physical Infrastructure. And we'll have the choice here to create a protection group. We'll give this protection group a name. Let's just call it Mac Agents. The protection group type that we'll want to choose for this is going to be this bottom choice here, computers with pre-installed agents. This is what we call a catch-all protection group. And the idea here is that there's going to be a configuration file that gets generated from this process, and most organizations will have some type of mobile device management software in play that they can use to actually push this configuration file out to the endpoint devices. So we've selected this computers with pre-installed agents, and we'll click on next. We have a few choices here. We're going to choose the Apple Mac package with the device profile, and we're going to need to browse out to a destination location where we want the pre-configured agent installation package to be placed. So we'll browse out here, and I'm just going to put this on my desktop. We'll create a new folder, and I'm just going to call it config. Pretty simple, takes just a couple minutes. Okay, and at this point, the process is completed, and if we just kind of review here, it created our database records, it saved the installation package file, I created that target folder, and saved our protection group information, and gave us a README text as well. So we'll go ahead and click on next, and we'll finish through this, and I'll minimize this and just show you the contents of this directory that was just created. So we see that inside of the folder there's a new folder called Mac Agents Distribs. If we look in there, there's a folder called Mac, and if we look in there, we see we have a few different items. I've taken the liberty of copying that config file that we created earlier and moving it over to the desktop of the Mac. And if I browse into this, so what we want to do is, because this is Big Sur, we want to select this bottom package, Veeam Agent for Mac. The only time that we would use the one above is if it's version 10.13. So we'll go ahead and we'll double click on this, and we'll click on Allow and just step through the Veeam Agent for Mac installer. And we can see that it was successful. And now what we'll need to do is we'll actually need to tell the agent to use the config file. We have one other step, which is going to be to also enable full disk access, as we talked about previously. So now if we go down to our Launchpad and we scroll over, we see that we have Veeam Agent for Mac. We can launch that, and it will tell us that it requires FDA, full disk access. We can click on the button here, Open System Preferences. And what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down and click on Full Disk Access. We can see that there is no check here. We'll click on the lock, enter in our admin credentials, and then we'll check this box. We'll agree to quit and reopen. Come back over here and click OK and click quit. And I'm just going to back out of here. I always like to come back in and double check and just make sure. So I'll go back to security and privacy, and I can see that that is checked. So we're done over here. And I will come back and relaunch the Veeam agent for Mac once again. And we're going to import a configuration file. We're going to click on Next. And that is sitting on my desktop in that config folder. This is the file that we want. Now before I do this, I just want to come over here into this Mac Agents protection group because I want to show you that once I import this file, that it should show up in the Veeam Backup and Replication console. So I'm going to click on OK. We're going to give it just a moment for it to import. And we can see that the configuration imported successfully, and we can immediately see that that machine is now present over here in our catch-all protection group. So at this point, we're now ready to create a backup job. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. It's just going to tell me that it's going to run in the background. We can see that it's running up here. And at this point, the configuration on the endpoint device on the Mac itself is complete. I have no other configuration requirements here. All management of the Veeam agent for Mac is performed over here. Now we need to actually create the backup policy. We can do that by right-clicking on the protection group and saying add to backup job, choose Mac, and new job. We can make some decisions whether it's a workstation or a server license. That gives us some choices in terms of how often and to what frequency and to what destination that we can back up. I'll explain that to you in just a second. We're going to go ahead and click next here. I'll leave this as a default. Obviously it's already got the Mac Agents protection group included here. And then we have our two choices. Are we backing up the most recommended option, which is going to be the user data, basically the user profile home directory for all of the users on the machine? Or do we want to define a specific directory? I'm going to leave this as default just to kind of step through this and show you. These are your four choices. And so when you use the workstation license, you can do a local backup and one of the offsite backups. So for example, a backup repository or the Cloud Connect repository. If you're using a server license, then you have kind of an unlimited number of choices here. So maybe you want to have a local backup, you want to back up to a backup repository that's on premises for, kind of a second copy of that backup, and then maybe you want to send a backup to a Cloud Connect repository. For purposes of our video, we'll do the Veeam backup repository and we'll click next. This is the name of my VBR server. We can see that it has populated the information for the backup repository. I'm just going to leave this as the default. I'm going to run this job automatically, and I'm going to select, just because of what we're doing right now, I'm going to say to do this at 2:25 p.m. every day, and I'm going to apply. Finish. Come back over here to home. You can see that we've got now a running job that's actually going to apply this backup policy, and it's going to attempt to apply it to all of the Veeam agents that are in that protection group. So the backup job has been updated. The new agent will pick it up when it connects to the backup server the next time. So it's not immediate. That's important. Now, let's come back over here to the Mac. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to open a terminal, because there's a couple of key commands here that I think are important. They're different flags and variations of the Veeam config command. The Veeam config command is part of the Veeam agent for Mac installation. And so the two things that we want to do is, because we have created a job now on Veeam Backup and Replication, the Veeam agent for Mac is going to periodically check in with VBR. And if we want to make that happen kind of on demand, then we can type this command called veeam config mode sync now. And what that's going to do is it's going to go reach out to VBR and it's going to say, hey, give me your latest backup policy and let me apply it to this particular agent. And then I can check on the status of that by going to veeam config job list. Okay, we can see that we've got a backup policy applied there. So if I come back over here, click on OK, and come back to the inventory and show you the name of the job. It's called Agent Backup Policy 1. And we can see that there is Agent Backup Policy 1 that's been applied to this particular machine. And so what that means is when it reaches the specified time, then this particular machine is going to go ahead and do its backup as defined in this Agent Backup Policy number 1. Now, I also have the Veeam Agent for Mac little icon that's running up here. And because it has a policy applied to it now, you can also see that if I don't want to wait for that job to kick off at its scheduled time, then I can come up here and actually click on this Start Backup Job, which I'm going to do now. And notice the job immediately kicks off over here in the VBR console. And we'll see this backup go ahead and complete. So this is just a quick demonstration of what I'm doing in my home lab. Again, running the RTM version of Veeam Backup and Replication. And I hope that this was helpful. I know, we've emailed back and forth a couple times, and I just wanted to kind of share this with you to hopefully get you over that hump with your customer. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and hope this was helpful. Thanks.